I think that in the United States, there should be equal opportunity and law should be equal for all races and all sexes.
So you would be for women voting?
I would be for women voting.
And you sell a book on how to end simping? You sell a book on how to end simping, but you're a women's rights advocate?
Welcome to Manosphere Highlights Daily. This video comes from a debate between Andrew Wilson and RightCorner regarding the impact of the Whatever podcast on society. The debate was over within the first 5 to 8 minutes, showcasing Andrew Wilson's adept debating skills, leaving RightCorner outmatched. Unfortunately, they went back and forward about the same argument for another 2 hours. I'll address that in another video. In this video, we would like to highlight the segment where Andrew Wilson's wife, Rachel Wilson, joins the live stream. The segment is pure gold because they are Christian nationalists. They have Christian values. So I want you to pay attention to some of the things they say about feminism and women's right to vote. Their perspective on these issues is sure to provoke thought and conversation. Share your thoughts in the comment section below. I'm eager to hear your opinions. Before we get into this, I would like to make sure that you know the definition of simping. Janice, read.
Simping. In essence, simping refers to excessively catering to or worshipping someone, typically someone of the opposite gender, with the hope of gaining their favor or affection. It's a term often used in discussions about modern dating and relationships.
We men ain't we? Yeah. We men ain't we? Yeah.
Hi, my question was for RC. You said earlier in the debate something about like toxic patriarchy. I haven't heard that term. Can you tell me what toxic patriarchy is?
If I said that, I did not mean that. I don't even know in the context of why.
I can give you the context because I just watched it earlier while I was doing some debate research. I take every debate opponent very seriously. In your debate with Destiny, you said in a toxic patriarchy, the antidote is feminism. And we need to interject the antidote of feminism. And you were alluding to this because you were saying inside of the West, the antidote of feminism was already interjected. And so there's no reason to go any further with feminism. That's the context.
Okay, I think then, well, my position on it is, if you're in a country that is literally limiting women to work or have a bank account, I think that there's some utility to feminism giving women the right to have a bank account. And I don't think I don't hear how you can make a Christian argument that women shouldn't be allowed to have a bank account. At one point in the United States, they weren't allowed to have a bank account. So I think there's some utility in it.
Do you know why they weren't allowed? Do you think it was just because the men were mean and didn't want them to have their own money? Or why do you think that was?
I think that they just weren't allowed to have a bank account because the men in power didn't allow them to have a bank account. And I push back on that. Let's allow them to have a bank account. Christianity is about freedom, and that's restricted.
No. First of all, where in the Bible does it say that Christianity is about freedom? And number two, the reason women couldn't have bank accounts is because they were not allowed to be legally held liable for debt, because the lawmakers said that's the man's job. We're not going to hold a woman responsible for any kind of debt or bills or anything like that. That's on the man's shoulders.
So you don't think women should have bank accounts? Do you have a bank account, Rachel? Or do you let everything with your man?
Yeah, everything's with Andrew.
So you don't have a bank account?
No, I only joint accounts with him where I do what he tells me to do with the money. Is that not cards?
Which is to give it all to me, by the way. It's to give it all to me. I don't
have nothing, none of the assets are in my name, no, unless, he were to pass away or something
Okay, then if you live that way, fair enough. I don't think
but I'm just asking, are you saying that's fine, but what is this idea that we needed a little bit of feminism? Like so you want women to vote, I would guess.
I really don't like the term feminism. I think that in the United States, there should be equal opportunity and law should be equal for all races and all sexes.
So you would be for women voting?
I would be for women voting.
And you sell a book on how to end simping? You sell a book on how to end simping, but you're a women's rights advocate? You you realize that giving women the vote is how we got legal abortion, the welfare state, all the things that limit freedom. You just said Christianity was about freedom.
Rachel,
letting women vote is the fastest way to lose your freedom.
I think pushing this idea, this very fringe concept that we should take away the amendment to allow women to vote is going to shy people away from the conservative movement. And you're just going to push more people to the left to vote.
What about my principles? What about my principles, though?
Yeah, what about
my principles?
What's wrong with women?
How are you going to stop simping if you're a women's liberation advocate? So you're basically saying you think Christians throughout history did the wrong thing until 100 years ago.
Where in Christianity can you anchor a biblical argument that women shouldn't be allowed to vote?
They're not even allowed to teach in church. They're not allowed to stand up in church. They must obey their husband. The entire thing is a patriarchal structure. I've already said this.
We live in the United States, which is not a Christian theocracy. Listen,
but
if you
said rights come from God. You said rights come from God, not the government. So if you want to go by the rules God laid down, he said that women are not allowed to teach. They're supposed to cover their heads in the church, and they're supposed to be quiet and ask their husband if they have a question about the teachings of the Bible or the church. So why should we allow them to vote to make abortion legal, to give, gay rights, to have a welfare state, to limit the rights of others? By the way, you said, do you think the government can just take away your rights? Well, that's certainly what happened, 4 years ago, and women were on the front lines demanding that people cover their face and take certain medical interventions. So yeah, if you think Christianity is about freedom, you need to rethink that, because you're just contradicting yourself. That's all. And maybe don't sell a book on how to end the simp epidemic if you're a women's lib advocate. That's all I've got.
So saying that women can vote is being a simp. That's sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, feminism from the beginning has all been about, overthrowing God's natural order. I mean, it's from the beginning. Nothing about feminism was good. Okay, it's always been about overthrowing God's natural order.
I'll just leave you with one more thing. I'll send you a copy of my book, just because I think you probably just don't know, because most people don't know. But the first wave feminists that were responsible for the 19th Amendment, which would be Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, they wrote their own version of the Bible called the Woman's Bible, where they took out all the patriarchal stuff they didn't like. They said that actually no man ever spoke to God, that the Mosaic Law was not delivered to man by God, and that Christianity was basically a fraud and a front for the evil patriarchy. So you should really brush up on some of the history, because I think you've just been spoon-fed a lot of lies.
Let him respond, and then we got to move to the next caller. Go ahead, RC.
Listen, Rachel, I'm not always right on everything. I'll be willing to read the book that you recommend, and perhaps it changes my mind on some things. But I still stand firm in my belief system. I do not think that it's Christian to say that women shouldn't be allowed to vote in the United States. I don't see how but perhaps I'll read your book and maybe my mind will get changed.
Well, we can only hope.
Manosphere, we working. Protect yourself at all times. This video has officially been highlighted.